If you look at the 2025 starting salaries for a certified registered nurse anesthetist and a certified anesthesiologist assistant, you will see a number that looks deceptively similar. On paper, both professionals work in the operating room, both administer anesthesia, and in a standard W-2 hospital job, both start their careers earning roughly $200,000 a year. At first glance, the return on investment looks identical. In fact, the anesthesiologist assistant route seems efficient. A master's degree with a direct path to the OR, but there is a hidden structural flaw in the economics of that profession that most students don't see until it's too late. One of these paths has an unlimited ceiling, a proven path to earning $450,000 to $600,000 a year. The other has a hard salary cap that is virtually impossible to break. Today, we aren't talking about politics. We are breaking down why the anesthesiologist assistant profession is mathematically designed to be cheaper, and why choosing the wrong credentials could cost you over $250,000 per year in lost revenue. The W-2 illusion, why base salaries lie. Let's start by deconstructing the illusion of the base salary. If you look at staff positions in a saturated market like Atlanta or Washington, D.C., you will see something confusing. You might see a listing for a nurse anesthetist offering $210,000 base. Right next to it, a listing for an anesthesiologist assistant offering $195,000 base. The gap is only $15,000. After taxes, that is barely noticeable. This is the W-2 trap. In a care team model, where a physician anesthesiologist supervises both the nurse anesthetist and the AA, the hospital views you as an interchangeable labor unit. You are there to execute the plan while the MD covers 4 rooms. In this specific model, your economic value is capped because you are an expense to be managed, not a revenue generator. Hospitals love this because it standardizes pay. They can offer a flat $200,000 package to everyone, but here's the reality. The nurse anesthetist in that role is voluntarily accepting a pay cut for convenience. The anesthesiologist assistant is accepting the maximum market rate for their licensure cap. The dependency discount, the billing reality. Here is the core economic difference, dependency. By law, an anesthesiologist assistant must work under the direct supervision of a physician anesthesiologist. They cannot bill independently. They cannot work solo. This means an AA can only exist in a market where there is already a high supply of expensive anesthesiologists to supervise them. This destroys your leverage. If you walk into a negotiation as an AA, you are tethered to the care team budget. You cannot threaten to leave and work at a rural independent hospital in Wyoming for $400,000. Because you legally can't work there, you cannot offer to cover a surgery center on Saturdays for $2,000 cash because you aren't licensed to do it solo. Your income is capped by the profit margins of your supervisor. Contrast that with the nurse anesthetist. A nurse anesthetist is licensed for independent practice in all 50 states. The moment a hospital tries to cap a nurse anesthetist at $220,000, they can leave and take a 10 to 99 contract elsewhere for $350,000. The option to be independent forces the market to pay nurse anesthetists a premium. The geography trap, saturation versus arbitrage. Leverage also comes from mobility. As of 2025, anesthesiologist assistants are eligible to practice in roughly 22 to 24 jurisdictions. They are heavily concentrated in specific hub states like Georgia, Florida, and Ohio. When thousands of graduates fight for jobs in the same 20 states, you get saturation. We are seeing AA offers in popular cities stagnating around $180,000 because there are 10 applicants for every seat. Now, look at the nurse anesthetist map. All 50 states. The money is in the arbitrage zones. Rural North Dakota, Central California, West Texas. In these areas, hospitals cannot find enough anesthesiologists, so they hire independent nurse anesthetists and pay a massive premium. We are seeing W-2 packages in these areas hitting $350,000 base with $50,000 sign-on bonuses. Because AAS must work in a supervised hub, they are locked out of the highest paying regions in the country. The strategic pivot. We are about to break down the exact hourly rates, the locum tenens math, that separates the wealthy provider from the average employee. But first, if you are finding value in this data-driven approach, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Most channels talk about the clinical side, we talk about the business side. Subscribe now so you never leave money on the table. The locum rate gap, the hourly math. Let's look at the locum tenens market, the temporary contract work that builds real wealth. I pulled the average independent contractor rates for 2025. Because anesthesiologist assistants are restricted to supervised facilities, their locum market is smaller. Rates currently hover around $195 to $215 per hour. That is roughly $8,000 for a 40-hour week. Now look at the nurse anesthetist rates. Because a nurse anesthetist can work independently, without the facility paying a physician $400 an hour to watch them, the facility passes those savings to the nurse anesthetist. We regularly see independent rates of $275 to $300 per hour. Let's do the weekly math. At $200 an hour, the AA earns $8,000 a week. At $275 an hour, the nurse anesthetist earns $11,000 a week. That is a $3,000 difference every single week. Over a 48-week year, that is a $144,000 gap in gross revenue, just from the hourly rate. The salary cap mechanism, overtime and call. The gap widens with call and overtime. In many AA contracts, overtime is paid at straight time, often around $150 an hour. For independent nurse anesthetists, the callback rate is aggressive. We see contracts offering $350 an hour for callback. Why? Because if the nurse anesthetist doesn't come in, the surgery doesn't happen. In the AA model, if the AA comes in, the anesthesiologist often has to come in too, doubling the cost. This is the salary cap mechanism. The hospital is incentivized to limit AA over time because it is inefficient. They are incentivized to pay the independent nurse anesthetist whatever they ask because it is still cheaper than hiring an MD team. This is why you see nurse anesthetists earning $600,000 through overtime, while AAS cap out at $300,000. The lifetime wealth gap, the 20-year horizon. So, what does this look like over a career? If you choose the anesthesiologist assistant route, you're choosing a career with a high floor but a concrete ceiling. You will likely earn between $180,000 and $240,000 for your entire career. If you choose the nurse anesthetist route, you're choosing a career with the same floor but no ceiling. You retain the option value to fire your boss, incorporate as a business, and bill $500,000 plus. Let's assume a conservative gap of just $150,000 a year. Over a 20-year career, that is a $3 million difference in gross earnings. If you invest that difference, the gap in net worth by the time you retire could be over $5 million. The credentials look similar on a badge, but in the bank account, they are two different asset classes. The final calculation. The question isn't which school is easier or which program is shorter. The question is, how much is your freedom worth? Would you trade one extra year of schooling for an extra $3 million in lifetime earnings? Would you trade the difficulty of nursing school for the ability to work in any state, in any practice model without a supervisor? I'm curious to hear your take. Would you trade independent practice for a shorter degree? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to know how to keep that money once you earn it, check out our video on the tax shield strategy next. I'll see you there.